Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 108. I would love to give you the title of it, but I haven't thought of it yet, so I'm going to tell the story first, and then I will come up with it. Anyways, I'm your host, Nyoka, and I just want to thank you for your patience while I took off the month of August to get things readjusted and to get used to the season of change. As you know, I am trying to rework the podcast to one host, me, and then probably have some guests here and there, so you might get to know different people. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome, and thank you for your patience on that. So I am back with a brand new case that I can't believe I never heard of before, but maybe you have. I don't know. I'm just behind, I guess, but this is a case about a child abduction. And it happened like decades and decades ago. And what makes this case unique is that the boy doesn't stay vanished. Anyways, I don't want to say too much. I'm just going to hop right on in. But as always, listener discretion is advised. Now, before I start talking about the case, I did look into some statistics on missing and abducted children, and apparently every 40 seconds a child goes missing or is abducted in the United States. Approximately 840,000 children are reported missing each year, and the FBI estimates that between 85 and 90% of these are children. Now, non-family, or other words, stranger abductions, typically occur in outdoor locations. Stranger abduction is most likely to involve a firearm when compared to the other types of abductions and is associated with sexual assault in female victims and robbery in male victims. This case probably had different statistics, or maybe they didn't have those statistics then. But this case is about a stranger abduction, and the victim was a 7-year-old boy named Stephen Stayner. And it happened in California on December 4th, 1972, while little Stephen, his life would be changed forever on this day. See, Stephen was 7. He was 4 foot 8 inches tall, freckled-faced boy, light brown shaggy hair, brown eyes, and he weighed about 60 pounds at the time of his kidnapping. And all that he was doing that day was walking home from school, and he vanished out of thin air. No one knew what happened to him. No one saw anything. No cars to look for. No possible sketches of any kidnappers to create. There was absolutely nothing. That day that Stephen was dressed in blue jeans, boots, and a heavy coat. And the weather that night dropped in the low 20s, as it did for the whole week. So police feared that Stephen, maybe he was injured and he could become a victim of just the outdoor exposure. But his father said, quote, "We hope and pray he is alive, but if he isn't, we must find him. We just can't leave him laying out there somewhere," end quote. Now, the day he went missing, his father took a vacation day to work on his pickup truck. His mother went downtown to shop and came back home before Stephen would have been home from school. When Stephen didn't come home from school, she called the police to report him missing around 5 p.m. Now, after Stephen was reported missing, police would question his parents about his son's life at home, if he was severely disciplined, which could have caused him to run away, any kind of issues like this. And I think that is important that we narrow, or we take the parents out of the possible equation of suspects, because a lot of the times kidnapping is from one of the other parents. But in this case, the parents are together, they were both accounted for, and there was nothing in the home life that would have caused Stephen to run away. So they told him, yeah, well, Stephen got a spanking 4 days before his disappearance, but they were like, it wasn't severe. I mean, the spanking happened because he was late coming home from school and he didn't tell his parents that he was going to be late and he was playing with a friend. So it wasn't like he was beat or, anything like that would cause him to run away. Now, Stephen's father spent every day and night searching for his son. He would search empty buildings, abandoned houses, dumps. I mean, anything that he thought, any place that he thought he could be, he searched. The police and the people in the community were amazing because they also helped him search. And they searched high and they searched low for Stephen. But people, they were so amazing because they would even take off work to help search for their son. And just that donation of time and care in the community meant so much to the family. The sheriff's department in the neighboring county even searched a 50-mile radius. And the U.S. Forest Service and rangers searched nearby woods and campgrounds. The family showed how extremely thankful they were for everyone's participation and help in trying to find Stephen. Officers from Merced Fire Department and the police department and the county sheriff's department, California Highway Patrol, guards and prisoners from the county center. I mean, they all searched. There was even a house-to-house search for Stephen. The family was even offered services of, quote, seers, who had, quote, visions of the boy's whereabouts. This was like a common thing back in the day. I don't know if it so much is, or if I don't really know, but psychics would call in like, I see where he is in my mind, blah, blah, blah. Or some of them would take advantage of the family because they knew they were hurting and this is a way they could profit off someone's pain. I don't know if it was one of those things, but it just came up in the research that I did, but it doesn't surprise me. So now the police did have calls come in where locals claimed they could have spotted Stephen, but nothing came of it. And another stranger called in and claimed that a 6-year-old boy told a friend that Stephen had been staying at his house for a few days, but that ended up to be a lie. I don't know why people lie about these things. I guess kids are kids and whatever. Maybe they were trying to be like, oh yeah, he's at my house. I'm maybe trying to be cool or something. I don't know. But I don't know why adults would lie. But in this case, it was a child. Anyway, it has nothing to do with anything. I just thought I'd throw that out there. There was also a program that was called the Bee's Secret Witness Program. And they tried to help in finding Stephen by posting a $1,000 reward for any information leading to the safe recovery of Stephen Stayner. I don't think anything came of that either. But all these things were happening. All these searches were happening. All these people were getting involved. Everyone's looking for Stephen. So what do we know for a fact of what happened? I dug into it for you, and let me tell you. What we know for sure about Stephen's disappearance is that he was last seen by a female service station employee around 3 p.m., which was about 30 minutes after he was dismissed from school. According to her, Stephen passed by there daily after school. Next, a girl at a drive-in restaurant thinks that she saw him that afternoon, but it was never verified. Also, a few of his classmates remember him leaving school that day. His teacher described him as a good average student, but there wasn't any information for the police to work with. Also, after 5 to 6 days of Stephen being listed as missing, it's now time to turn the missing status into foul play or kidnapping. So I don't know if there's like a set number of days where someone's case could be missing before it changes. I don't know if that was then, if it's still like that now, but apparently at that time they believed that they should change it from missing to foul play. Now, there were a lot of theories around this case, and I will tell you now. Okay, so the police discounted the theory that Stephen may have hitched a ride because his father always warned the children to never accept a ride with strangers. Stephen's father said, quote, "One called from Albuquerque and said Stevie was locked in the trunk of a car. Another said he had accepted a ride on a motorcycle and had been thrown off, injured, and buried under some leaves. It may sound foolish, but I've checked all these things out," end quote. Now, his dad believes that his son was kidnapped or possibly accepted a ride from one of the many tourists in the area. He said, quote, "I think he was abducted by some of the tourists that stop at the market near our house. I'm convinced he's out of Merced County by now, and maybe even in another state," end quote. The family felt that Stephen was still alive somewhere. Now, Stephen's mother, Kay, had actually tried to explain to the other children why Stephen wasn't home. Now, the dad said, quote, "Actually, Kay has taken it better than I have and keeps telling the kids that Stevie will be back. But late at night, after we have said our prayers, I can hear her crying," end quote. Ugh, that's got to be so hard. Oh, man. So, unfortunately, this is all that we know, and this is all that we will know for 7 years. On March 2nd, 1980, Stephen reappears, now at age 14. This is like a miracle. I mean, you just don't hear these things. It's like a movie. Okay. So Stephen was reunited with his parents, brothers, and sisters. And the family, like I said, they always felt like he was still alive, and they still felt that way. And they proved that to Stephen when they brought out the 7 years worth of Christmas presents. So what really happened on that day? Now that Stephen's back, we can find out. So Stephen said that on the day he was kidnapped, he was walking home from school when a man named Irvin Edward Murphy approached him on foot, told him that he was collecting money for a church, and asked if his mother might like to donate. While this was happening, a car pulled up with a man named Kenneth Parnell, and he was driving. So the man that was on foot invited Stephen to get into the car. They drove out to Highway 140. They passed the cannery where Stephen's dad worked. After he was kidnapped, Irwin, the one who approached him initially, instantly had nothing more to do with Stephen. He was now in the hands of 48-year-old Kenneth. Stephen spent the next few days playing with a screaming demon battery-operated motorcycle in a cabin. He was threatened to never reveal his true identity. If he did, he would be spanked. He told Stephen that his parents didn't want him anymore, and Kenneth claimed that he had been awarded custody in court and that he is now Dennis Parnell. He is no longer Stephen. He is now Dennis. Oh, and he had to call Kenneth Dad. Over the years, Stephen would be beaten. He would be given drugs and alcohol. He would be sexually abused on a regular basis by this man that he was forced to call Dad. Yet, he never told anyone his real identity, and there were opportunities to do it. Who could he have told? So, there are several people he could have told over the 7 years that he was gone. Well, okay, so there was this babysitter that shared their home for a while, And he could have told anyone at school because he was allowed to go to school. He could have told his close friends that he stayed overnight with, but he never did. He never told anyone. And it's amazing to me that he didn't reach out for help. He lived such a hard life with all of this abuse, moving around from motels to trailer courts to remote cabins. By the time he reached high school, he started to think about his situation more, and he was thinking about a plan to escape this life he was living. So months before he did escape, Stephen was told by Kenneth to kidnap other younger boys, or to help him kidnap other boys, I should say. And apparently Stephen was getting too old for his liking. So on 2 occasions, Stephen went with Kenneth to help him pick up a young boy. But instead of helping him, he would mess things up. So he would just make it harder on Kenneth. So one day, Kenneth goes out on his own and he comes back to the cabin where they were living in, and he brought home a 5-year-old boy named Timmy White. Seeing this young boy really triggered Stephen. It really got something inside of him stirred. And during this time, Kenneth needed to make money. And so he was forced to take a job as a security guard, which is ironic, isn't it? That he is security when people should be secured from him. But anyways, he was working as a security guard in addition to his work as an auditor at a hotel. So when Kenneth was at work, Stephen took that opportunity to escape with this little boy. So he knew if they stayed, that little Timmy would suffer the same fate that he did. He knew it. He knew it would happen. He couldn't stand that thought. So him and Timmy would hitchhike 40 miles to a police station. That day, Stephen became Timmy's hero. Now, because Stephen literally spent half of his life with his pedophile kidnapper, he was able to provide enough information to lead police to Kenneth and his accomplice, Irwin. Now, Irwin was arrested on a charge of assisting in Stephen's kidnapping. He was 38 years old. He was employed as a janitor for the past 11 years. Kenneth was also arrested and charged with the kidnapping of Stephen and Timmy. So let's talk about what kind of monster was Kenneth. Because I need to know, what is this dude thinking? Why is he doing this? So apparently Kenneth's female friend thought and described him as a, quote, good father. And she had no idea that he really wasn't Stephen's real father. She didn't even know about the kidnapping or anything he did. It was like this different life. Kenneth had a long history of psychosexual, criminal, and suicidal behavior that started at the early age of 4 when he tried to yank out his own teeth, which is kind of weird. But in a 1951 psychiatric report, the teeth pulling incident was described as a self-destructive act. At age 8, Kenneth shined a bright light into his eyes so long that he damaged them and he had to start wearing glasses. At age 13, he was raped by a man in Bakersfield and continually considered suicide. As a teen, he served a term in reform school for car theft. At 19, Kenneth was a husband and had an infant daughter, but he was convicted of kidnapping an 8-year-old boy in Bakersfield, taking him to a remote location and molesting him. Sounds just like what he went through, doesn't it? A court-appointed psychiatrist declared him a sexual psychopath. So Kenneth served 8 years in a state hospital and prison for his sexual assault charge. His wife would divorce him, she would remarry, and she would refuse him to ever see their daughter again. And a good move on you. You probably saved her some experiences that she would be in therapy for forever. Later on, Kenneth would spend another 6 years in prison for robbery and grand larceny. He was released in March of 1967, and now he was charged with kidnapping. So he's been in trouble his whole life. He's been an issue since age 4. Authorities revealed that nude photographs of the boys were found in a barn across the road from the cabin. They also said that Timmy was not sexually abused. This is probably because Stephen got him out in time, I'm assuming. Now Kenneth and Erwin, I don't know why I keep saying that wrong. Anyway, they were both pleading guilty. I'm sorry, they pleaded not guilty. I mean, why would they admit their guilt? Anyways, they pleaded not guilty to the charges, but at the end of the day, Erwin was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Kenneth, however, was a different story, and this is probably going to make you mad because I was mad reading it. Now, the law during this time did not give Stephen justice because of a loophole. Yeah, a loophole. So Kenneth was sentenced 7 years for Timmy's 16-day kidnapping. And due to the law's loophole, only 20 months for Stephen's 7-year kidnapping was attached to that. So Kenneth would become a free man again in April 1988 with 3 years of parole. That's so aggravating. But, of course, he messes up again. So years later, in 2004, Kenneth would be in his 70s, and he would be sentenced to 25 years to life for attempting to buy a 4-year-old boy for $500. That's right, he was trying to buy a child. Anyway, after Stephen was reunited with his family, he had to transition back to a normal life, which is not easy after what he's been through for the last 7 years. Now, his sister Corey said, quote, he got on with his life, but he was pretty messed up and he never got any counseling. My dad said he didn't need any, end quote. Oh, that's so aggravating. See, things were so different then. Mental health wasn't really focused on. People didn't focus on therapy. It's just, I don't know. It was just hard. It's hard to explain how different it was, but it was so different. People didn't take care of their mental health like they do now. So Stephen never got the help that he needed. He would eventually drop out of high school because other kids teased him for being molested in the past. Stephen was also drinking a lot, and he suppressed his feelings. He was going through it. And in a Newsweek story, he stated, quote, I returned to most as a grown man, and yet my parents saw me at first as their 7-year-old. After they stopped trying to teach me the fundamentals all over again, it got better. But why doesn't my dad hug me anymore? I guess 7 years changed him too. Everything has changed. Sometimes I blame myself. I don't know. Sometimes if I should have come home, would I have been better off if I didn't? End quote. I continued to look for more articles later down the road to see how Stephen was progressing, if he got in any trouble, if anything came of his story. And I did find some updates, and I'm going to share them with you right now. So 3 years after returning to his family, he would be 17 at this time. He has fully readjusted to his real identity because if you remember, he was now being called Dennis and living a completely crazy life. He said, quote, I think I've gotten back into the life I would have lived if I hadn't been kidnapped, end quote. Now, in June of 1985, when Stephen was 20 years old, he got married to a woman named Jody. And he would have his first child, a daughter named Ashley, in 1986. And then a year later, he would have a son, Stephen Jr. By age 24, Stephen still blamed himself in some ways for what happened, but his wife said that he was finally at peace with it. Stephen went on to work with groups that search for missing children, talked to kids about stranger danger, and helped with a 1989 TV movie based on his kidnapping called I know my first name is Steven. I have not watched this movie. I don't know if you have. If you have, you should shoot me a comment and tell me if it was good, if it's worth watching. Maybe I'll give it a shot. I don't know. But after Steven sold the rights to his story, he would buy a blue and white motorcycle, a Kawasaki motorcycle, with a piece of that $30,000 that he received. And he's finally at peace with his life and with his story, and he's helping others. And I think that's so wonderful. But of course, life has a different plan for Steven. And unfortunately, on September 16th, 1989, at the age of 24, Steven was driving his motorcycle home from his job at Pizza Hut when a car pulled in front of him and they collided. Steven died from that accident, and the driver fled the scene. The driver would later turn himself in and be charged with a hit and run and manslaughter charges. So that day, his story ended as he left behind a wife, a 3-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old son. May he finally rest in peace. And it just hurts my heart to know that he finally adjusted to his life. He made peace with it. He sold his story. He used that money that he sold his story and he bought a motorcycle. And on that motorcycle, he dies. It just, oh my gosh, it just makes me sad. And before I end this episode, when I was looking for more things about this case, I was so incredibly shocked because he came from a pretty big family with brothers and sisters and what have you. But one of the articles that I saw was talking about, so he was known as a hero, right? Because he helped that little boy escape and all this stuff. So he was a hero, but later on, 19 years later, his brother named Carrie Stayner murdered 4 females. So he was a serial killer. And that just blew my mind. I'm like, should I cover that story too? One sibling was kidnapped and came back and was known as a hero, and the other one was a serial killer. What is happening? I don't even know. If you think I should cover that, give me a shout. So that will do it for this episode. If you can't get enough of Operation Evil, consider supporting the podcast by joining our Patreon. There are many perks and different tiers to choose from. Regardless of what you pick, you will definitely have a 30-minute bonus episode every month that is exclusive to our supporters and will not be played on a regular, platform that you listen on. So if you can't do that, that's cool. You can always buy us a coffee, which the link is in the show notes. It's just a one-time little thing. If you would like to support us for free, we would love that. Just rate our show, share our podcast, talk about it, like and follow our social media pages. Any of these things helps us out by getting the word out. And I appreciate every one of you. Thank you again for your patience as I took August off. And I will be back next time with a new episode. Goodbye.